Gentlemen, how are we?
Good, thank you.
Really good, thank you very much.
I know you probably don't need to do this, but do you want to announce who you are to the
So,
people?
my name's Stephen, and I used to be Mayor of St Neots till they sacked me. I was Mayor of St Neots for 2 years. Then I got elected into all different types of councils as well. So I got elected onto County Council, ended up being Chair of County Council, and then I said to my wife, there's District Council elections. Like, I'll stand for District Council, but I won't go on, or we'll be in opposition. Then we won, didn't we? And we ended up in power at District Council as well. And so Michael is also a councillor. So I'm the chair of the county council, and Michael is the chair of the district council.
I am indeed, yes.
Fantastic.
So I'm Michael. So I'm also St Ives town councillor, and as Stephen said, chair of the district council. And one of the things that I wanted to kind of get involved in, and was part of my kind of remit really, was supporting mental health within the district. So. It was really lovely to be able to connect with Alex and say, look, I want to come and support you. I want to know more about what you guys are doing generally, not just, over the last sort of 20 or so hours. And it's to really support to get that message out there, not just with St Neots, but wider.
Absolutely, yeah.
So,
no, I totally agree. Thank you very much.
And you're somebody who's been really open about your own mental health struggles, haven't you?
yeah, I have.
Recently, at least, anyway.
Yeah. I think it's a really odd thing to start that conversation. And even now... Oh, thanks. Even now, it's very much... For anybody, it's that really difficult moment of going, actually, I get it. I understand. I've been there. But the one thing that I take from everything that I experienced over the last couple of years is it's so important to talk about it. And that's what gets me through those really difficult days when even just the slightest thing might cause you a little bit of stress. It's just knowing that actually there's people out there that you can just pick up the phone to, or you can go and knock on someone's door and have those conversations, and they're not going to judge you. They're just there to listen or to help you rationalise that sometimes. And I'm really lucky because I have been incredibly open about it. I made a private Facebook group and invited...
I just joined this second.
Yeah.
Thank you for the invite.
So it's very much kind of as and when. I don't post regularly. It's if I'm having a really good time, if I'm having a bad time. And it starts at the beginning of and it's a horrible phrase, but my journey.
Yeah.
From that moment when I publicly said, actually, look, I attempted suicide, and I needed to say that to people, but I didn't want to have that conversation 50 times, 100 times. 5 times was enough.
Wow.
Telling your mum, your sister, your best friend. So to create that group and invite people into it, they had no idea what it was about because I didn't post anything until they were all there. And then it was like, okay, so nobody gets the analogy of the black dog. That's what I called it. And then I just posted it. And it went crazy. And from that, I had so many people that came to me and they were like, wow, you've opened something in my mind. I have a really good friend who came to my house and he just walked in the door and I was like, oh, do you fancy a coffee? And he was like, yeah, that's great. So I'm in the kitchen making a coffee. I'm like, what the hell is he doing? And I walked in and he was crying because he was so overwhelmed at the fact that he'd built himself up to come and tell me his story because he'd read mine.
It's support. That's what it's about.
And it just, it was literally like, I can't believe that from me being open and honest, it's allowed other people to do that and men to do that.
Absolutely. Actually, that's a very good point. I'm just going to say that right now. If you have been affected by any of these conversations the last 24 hours and even conversations moving forward, please look at the links of CPSL Mine there. Now, obviously, NHS First Response Service on 111 option 2. Can I ask a question? I'm going to go quite personal, if that's right. And I'm not going to ask you the who, when, and why. Can I ask you, when you felt suicidal and you were about to take your life, how did you feel? What do you think about anybody else?
Sort of. So to kind of put that into a context, I'll go there. I'll tell you.
Honestly, you don't have to.
No. It's cool. It's out there, so it's fine.
Okay, yeah.
So basically, I'd kind of gone through a few days of getting to that point of I can't do this anymore. At no point did I think I wanted to die.
Mm-hmm.
It was just I cannot do this anymore. And I'd gone home from work on the Friday. I'd had a really bad day at work, really, really stressful. And I woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I've only ever experienced this once. I was having a panic attack in my sleep.
Wow.
And I woke up, and it was because I'd been dreaming about being late to pick my nephew up to take him to a football match that was actually happening the following morning.
Right.
And so I then that was almost like the turning point. It's like, I can't do this to myself. And all day, I just kept thinking, I've got to do something about this. So he was my first thought. But then throughout the day, it was just me going through the motions of a normal Saturday. Yeah. And it was things like, I still went to get my hair cut that day. I took my nephew to get his hair cut. We went to McDonald's and got a milkshake. I took him home, and then it was like, I've got to do something about it. And it just then became my brain versus my heart, which was, in here it was screaming, and in here it was like, right, enough. Cut the cable now, enough. And I then just became fixated on how I was going to stop this pain, this anger, frustration. And I then went through every option, really. And so I've had this, it's really weird because I've not talked about it for such a long time, but having spoken about it before we came in here, I went down the route of wanting to take an overdose, and I'd planned exactly what I was going to do, where I was going to park my car next to a river, because once that was in my system, you put yourself in the water, you're not coming back. And I was in such a state that I didn't know this until afterwards, but I'd collected up all the tablets, and it became an absolute blur. So I couldn't tell you the time that I did it. I couldn't tell you what I was wearing, anything. But I knew I'd got the dog worming tablets. And it's like, why on earth are you doing that? But it seemed a sensible thing. So I'd collected everything up. So the antidepressants I was taking anxiety medication, and I'd literally got it. And I couldn't at that point have told you any of that. And it wasn't until a week later where I was starting to get help, and I'd done some washing, and the hoodie that I was wearing was on the air. And I suddenly was like, oh my God, that's the hoodie I was wearing, because I suddenly remembered I was putting everything in the pocket in the front. Yeah. And I had to get rid of it, because every time I put that on, it would be a reminder of that particular thing. So you kind of shut certain things out. But yeah, I guess there was nobody else in my thoughts at that time.
Again, I want to say thank you so much for opening up about that, because I think it's important that. And the reason why I wanted to try and emphasise that, because I knew what your answer was going to be, that you didn't think about anybody, your loved ones, and I wanted to emphasise to everyone out there as well, and that's the reason. People taking their own lives, it's their final resort. They don't think about anybody else apart from themselves. That they cannot take this pain much longer. So for people who have lost loved ones from taking their own lives, I want you to try and emphasise that it's not your fault. It really isn't your fault. So brave of you, and so thank you so much. It's so needed, honest conversation like this.
It absolutely is, and having shared with everybody that I felt it, I was comfortable to share that with, and it wasn't until November 21 that I then posted it on my Facebook profile, and it was a really. I'd say it's a really stupid thing. At the time, it wasn't. and afterwards it wasn't. But now I laugh about it.
Why is that? Why is that?
Because at the time it was my worst fear. So I'll tell you what happened, and then it might kind of.
Yeah.
So for the last 3 years, I've chaired the Christmas Lights Committee for St Ives, and I put everything I've got into it because, unfortunately, St Ives kind of got left a little bit, and it was a bit rubbish. And so I was like, I want Christmas to be as magical as it can be, as I remember it, which is big bright lights everywhere, and the town is buzzing. And I have a really close friend who he does loads of different things throughout the year. So he's a Freddie Mercury tribute, he's an Elton John tribute,
Brilliant.
and then from September onwards, he's Father Christmas. So he does a lot of stuff in terms of like he is the Father Christmas for Sky TV and so on. So he's incredible. And I said to him, please come and be Father Christmas for me. Forget everyone else, the 7,000 people that are there. Just come and do it for me. And anyway, I invited him along, and I'd been there since 6 a.m. I'd been up until 2 o'clock in the morning, putting the cones out to close the road and all that. And I was exhausted. So I know it's nowhere near where you guys probably feel right now, but I had seen people sort of milling about all day. I went off stage, he did his thing. And as I came back up, I realised the enormity of what I'd achieved, which was there were thousands of people. And my heart just suddenly started pounding and my legs buckled.
Really?
And it was like, oh my goodness me, this is like the worst thing in the world because they've all just seen me fall on stage. And I kind of went, oh, I'm tired. And actually it was my body going, no, this doesn't work. We don't do this anymore. And I kind of was like trying to mask it. So the next day I posted it on my public profile and I was like, actually, I want you to know that what happened was potentially my body going, no, this is not comfortable for you. So I needed to kind of explain it to people, and it was the only way that I could see at that point, rather than blagging it.
Did that give you? Did that give you some form of closure? Do you think that moment? Because you found it sounds like from, and you must forgive me because. Yeah, I think you followed me on Twitter yesterday off the back of a retweet. Then I started looking through your profile.
Yeah.
You said, "Oh, I'm going to come in." I was like, "Oh, who's this guy?" I kind of knew of you.
Yeah.
And then I saw your story. I was like, "Oh, it makes sense. Why you want to come and have a?"
We've talked.
Yeah,
We've
but
talked.
then that's great.
Yeah.
But for me, I don't know, and I'm like, okay, now it makes sense why you're here and you're speaking
Yeah.
up, and I thank you for using this platform to speak up.
So
but I think what I want to know is, and I want the audience to know when we're watching these clips back and stuff, is like, what did that do for you to help you move forward beyond that?
I wouldn't say it's given me closure, because I think whether it's a positive or a negative thing, we can all have very good mental health, we can have bad mental health. So for me, I know that there's always going to be something in the back of my mind. I'm certainly a stronger person, and I think having put myself forward to be involved with local councils and all that kind of stuff, you have to develop that kind of thicker skin, and you have to be strong. But it also, for me, having had those conversations with friends in the very early days, has allowed me to kind of extend that hand a bit further. So it's given me, I wouldn't say closure, it's given me satisfaction that in the grand scheme of things, I could have been one of those 7,000 people standing in that crowd, but I would still have the opportunity to say to people, this is okay. It's all right to feel this way. It's okay for your body to react in this way, but the help is also out there. Please use that.
That's what I was going to mention about help. What kind of help did you get?
So I have to say I was incredibly lucky. So I spent probably 24 hours or so on my own, digesting what had happened and what I attempted to do, and I'm very, very grateful, that I'm here now, and I'm very lucky that I'm here now. And the first time I actually said it out loud was when I rang in work to say that I wouldn't be in, and I then had to kind of decide how to, what was that next step. And my next step was to ring 111 and press option 2.
Absolutely.
and just the enormity of the emotion that came out of my body physically, even that was a relief, because it was almost like somebody was saying to me, "It's all right, just tell me."
Again, it's so important for you to tell people.
You know, I cannot stress enough, and I know people say, "Oh, you know, I've been waiting. I've been on the phone for however long, 10 minutes, 15 minutes." It doesn't matter. It's taking that first step and saying it out loud. And I know that, again, there's the cliche of it's okay to not be okay. Absolutely. That is absolutely right. Because actually there's people out there who are going to make it okay.
Yeah.
And the person that you have to start with is yourself.
So what happened after the calling?
So I had a phone call from a friend of mine, and she said, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine." She was like, "You sure?" I was like, "Yeah." And she was like, "Oh, okay. It's just you messaged me on Saturday night and I replied, but then I saw you read it and you didn't reply." She was like, "You always reply." And I don't remember that. And she was like, "Were you drinking?" And I was like, "No." And we just carried on talking. And she was like, "You would tell me if something was wrong, wouldn't you?" And I was like, yeah, absolutely. And she was like, "Please tell me." And I was like, "No, no, it's nothing. Don't worry about it." Because I didn't want to have that conversation over the phone. I'd already done it twice in the day.
Yeah.
And so we carried on talking. And I then got a knock at the door, and it was such a sense of relief because I went, "I've got to go, there's someone at the door." And it was her.
Amazing.
And she actually said to me, "I'm not going until you tell me what's going on."
Great friend.
Incredible.
Great friend.
And knowing I was coming here tonight, I spoke to her all the way from my house in St Ives until I parked the car.
What a friend that is.
And that was purely because I needed to talk to her, not about coming here, but I needed to talk to her because I know I can.
Yeah.
And she doesn't judge. And she'll just go, "Okay." And it's that word. And you know there's no judgment behind it.
Mm-hmm.
It literally is, "Okay, it's all right, it's fine."
To be honest, again, I can't tell you how important this conversation and how it's not patronising, so apologies if it is. It comes across that way. It's so brave to talk so openly about it, and I'm not kidding. You will be helping so many people, not just live here, but people will be watching back on it. It's such a powerful message about the feelings you had when you considering taking your own life, but also what you did, what happened next after calling NHS 119 and 2, because that's what we're trying to publicise.
I think
You
it's
aren't alone.
interesting because this platform, Speak Up, you're probably 107th person to speak up over the last 3 years, and all of these kind of segments off the back of this are going to be part of what we do with CPSL Mind off the back. And it's the voices, it's the faces. Steve, we talk about this a lot, various different frame of references around it. It's the faces. We need different faces and different voices just speaking up, and that's very helpful and useful for everyone.
Because it shows it's not unusual as well. So I think, not everybody can relate with all of your struggle, but most of us can relate, me and you, in terms of getting too deep in things as well and pushing ourselves too far and getting to that brink of physical exhaustion. We've all been there as well.
And I think it's also those people that just read, and I remember we had that initial conversation. I think it was through Messenger or something, and you were like, "I've just seen what you've written," and it was like, "Oh, okay," and it wasn't a big thing to me, but it suddenly made me think, actually, this is a big thing.
You gave someone else permission to reach out in a meaningful. The word is permission.
Yeah.
You had the self-awareness originally,
yeah.
and then you gave other people permission when you felt safe to do so. And what that activates, the ripples, as Danny B would say, the ripples of those decisions are important.
I think it's interesting as well because it's about reaching out to people as well. If you feel like they are going through something, but it's not about prodding. So I'm not going to go to you. You okay, mate? A few minutes ago, are you okay, mate? Are you okay, mate? Because with that, you are going to push them because they're not ready to. They would have answered. I've actually just launched it's called Must Ask to Engage campaign. Stands for MATE. Every Friday for the whole of this year, it will show you a text message how you can message your mate. How are you?
That's good.
Just a simple text.
Yeah.
And it'll be hey, how are you? Or hi, hi buddy, how things?
Yeah.
Because just emphasise it's easy to reach out to loved ones. But the worst, like I said, the worst thing you can do is prod people. Just don't do that.
I think and understanding, like your friend clearly knows you
Yeah.
and knows who you
Yeah,
are
yeah.
and how to engage with you in that meaningful way. Like like Christine's my anchor, my partner in life and business and every other aspect of whatever life is. She knows it. She has to take me away. To your point, because I'm so intense in the way that I operate. I'm a hunter. She has to take me away for 3 or 4 days before even engaging with me.
Yeah.
So if you engage with me in that situation, I'm just going to probably knock you out or something. But like it's understanding of each other. So you've got to understand yourself first and foremost. Self-awareness has been a running theme for this entire day. The second has been community, and I'll bring it back every time. Nicola Bretherton said it earlier.
Yeah.
It's the so that prodding thing. So I agree. But there's also something in the enduring relationship. So it's that I'm on the phone and I'm at the door.
Yeah.
And I ain't going anywhere until you tell me.
I have another really good friend who it's always a difficult conversation because I always look at her and I think, oh my God, she's so busy, I don't want to bother her. And I'd sort of, again, it's that permission thing. I'd said, no, please go and tell her if you see her. I don't want to have that conversation, but I also respect the fact that she's really busy. And she did that taking away thing. She was like, right, I'm going to meet you and we're going to go around the dog walking field. I'm going to meet you on the bank holiday Monday at 10 o'clock and we're going to walk the dog. Yeah. And I was like, okay, that's cool. And we walked it 5 times. And that was literally getting it all out of my system. And it also allowed her into my world, but it also allowed her to share how she was feeling.
It's like a safe and comforting environment for you to be able to do that. So again, that's the power of like the walk and talk for men. Isn't it? It's
I was going to say walking is part of it
Walking
as well.
is huge. You're in that nature, in
it's
the
important.
park away from the cars and the
We had a bundle in here earlier. I don't know if you saw, but we had the whole. We literally had a whole bundle in here earlier.
I'll share it to you guys later. Sorry.
Well, look, I appreciate you sharing, man.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for like hanging around, reaching out, and speaking
But
up.
it wasn't my intention to
No,
come
I-
in. It
no,
was-
I know,
And I'm
but-
sorry that you didn't get to say very much.
No. Well, Fergie's here
I've
till the end, and we've,
We've got a big reveal.
what's important. That's every year this happens. If I'm honest, like there's always. That's why we try to just create the space. It's a safe space, and that's what it is. And
it is really, really essential. It's much needed. We all have really busy lives. The world is a really difficult place day to day. So to create this as a kind of reminder and a flagship, it's incredible.
I appreciate the
So
support, man.
amazing.
Appreciate the
Yeah.
support, man. Lovely. Very good to
And
see
so,
you, man.
once
You got
again,
to sign the tea.
yeah, please do. Once
sorry,
again,
do that.
please stress that if you are upset by anything we just discussed the last 30 minutes, please reach out to NHS 111 option 2, CPL Sale Mine, but also at this time of the evening, the Samaritans. We'll be right back shortly. Please, again, share your contact to your mates, please. If you can donate any money, I think you can prove right now the power of what CPL Sale Mine does and support people.